episode
10. I did not screw that up.
Yeah, they were out of order on the other.
Yeah, I said episode 9 and I was very adamant about it, and then it wasn't.
That's good though. I admire that about you. That even when you're wrong, you're so sure about
emphatic.
it. You're convinced
emphatic.
me. Yeah,
I was emphatic about it. So this is episode 10 of That Record Got Me High. That's Rob Elba.
That's Barry Stock.
We have a special guest this week to discuss The Crossing by Big Country. We have from the good old days in Tallahassee, Florida, drummer Woody Compton from in the band Insect Fear. You were also in
Frankenfinger, Skull Train, The Turns, Jefferson Shark Meat and the Space Ghost Ensemble.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
One-time band, but fun. And I'm flattered to have been asked. I'm a big fan of the podcast.
Awesome.
Welcome.
And Woody, you picked out, or we had talked about Big Country, and you said how much you liked the record, and that's how you ended up here with us today.
Yeah, this is not my favorite Big Country record. And it's interesting on your podcast.
It's not?
No. It's not the only one. But
this is going to be fun.
Yeah, right.
Well, but it's interesting often because you pick a record and then, you'll have something like, well, I don't think this is their best record, but we picked this one. Like the same discussion with Husker Du.
Yeah,
it's I far prefer New Day Rising to flip your wig.
That should come up.
No, but me too. But you also think about what would be the best record to go over and to.
It doesn't mean I didn't enjoy the discussion anymore, but it's interesting because it's often hard to pick a record by a band.
Oh yeah, definitely, especially if it's a band you really like. But what is your favorite Big Country record?
Steel Town. It's a 5-star album. Every song's great. Every song's great.
So you're a fan. You're a real Big Country.
I'm a Big Country fan. They also, and I want to throw this out. They did the soundtrack to a movie called Restless Natives, a Scottish film about two guys that were holding up tourists.
Scottish? Are they?
They're Scottish. And it's called Restless Natives. They did the soundtrack to that movie, and it's probably the best thing they ever did.
Wow.
It's mostly instrumental, but it's fantastic.
I did not.
Yeah, see, that makes sense to me because the instrumental. Because I feel like, as an instrumental band, these guys are unbelievable. They're like lights out great, and I really enjoy listening to it. Where they kind of falter, I feel, is, and not so much the singing, but just the
lyrics,
just the lyrical content, and the whole. The thing is, I was telling Barry, I go, we have to leave our cynicism at the door for this one. Because they're so earnest. They're such an earnest band, and not to take, and that doesn't really take away from them, but in a way, I don't know. It's just. When bands are that heartfelt and earnest.
Well, I didn't go back and look at Big Country lyrics that were from other records, from later records.
Oh, they're similar.
They're similar?
They're similar, right.
They're very obtuse and hard to understand. They have phrases, and I'm like, what are they talking about? I'd consider U2 another very earnest band.
Right.
I usually know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know what these guys are talking about a lot of the time. That's why I'm looking for the Barry Stock lyrical analysis.
All right,
okay.
Well, good luck with that.
Pardon me, I just ate a brownie, so...
All right, so they're a Scottish band formed in
81?
Dunfermline. Is that how you pronounce that?
You got me.
Dunfermline, Fife. In
Scottish people, go ahead and feel free.
Dunfermline. No, I think that's it. Fife in 1981. Yeah, so it's Stuart Adamson. Bruce Watson was the other guitar player. Tony Butler, the bass player. Mark, how do you pronounce it?
Brzezinski.
And the drummer. Great drummer.
Fantastic
Such
drummer.
a good drummer.
Hugely influential in my playing.
At that time, I remember when Big Country came out, I recognized Tony Butler and the Mark guy from Pete Townsend.
They played on was it Empty? No, it was All Kaiwas Have Chinese Eyes.
So MTV played that song, Let My Love Open the Door, like constantly. That song was
Slit Skirts was another one they played that they played on.
And so when Big Country came out, I said, that's
those guys.
The guys from
well, they also played with Pretenders.
Yes, right.
They were a rhythm for hire. They were kind of a rhythm section.
He played, the Mark guy, the drummer played with the Cult. She Sells Sanctuary.
Yep, he's played with a bunch of people. He's a hired gun.
Right.
Badass.
But such a good drummer.
But the interesting thing for being a studio musician, he has a lot of personality in his playing. Yeah. He's not somebody that disappears into the album.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%.
For anyone that's curious, the dishwasher's done. That's the beeping.
We're doing this at Casa de Barry.
Yeah, today, a family abode.
Yeah, it's nice. It's got a nice homie. Hopefully the hominess will come through.
I hope so, yes.
I really hope it does.
here's my take on the lyrics, and we'll just get that out of the way. Stuart Adamson likes to portray a visionary, sort of broad expanses of swaths of Scottish history stuff and feeling, but he doesn't provide enough local context or more individual context for you to hook onto anything. Mm-hmm. So you have to. He makes you cook up a lot in your head, with Pavement, where a lot of times he's throwing out stuff and you're like, whatever. But you can sort of. His is a lot more personal and you can see this is just some guy talking about shit.
There's more things to dig into. And with this, it's so expansive and generalized that it's like,
epic.
Okay, well this...
I believe he's trying to write epic things. And so when you write epic things, you sort of broaden your palette, or maybe not broaden your palette, you broaden the your gaze. But then maybe sometimes the people who lack context, maybe there's Scottish people who go, I know exactly what he's...
You really think so? Because I don't.
Really? You don't? I was wondering about that. I was wondering. But they were obviously really popular there, and they did even...
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. You look at the stadiums filled with people jumping up and down.
They're very enthusiastic audiences, and... I think,
and some very questionable outfits. I gotta say, early on.
Which parts? Just the fact they wore plaid everywhere, or they were trying to be very Scottish.
They were playing up the Scottish thing, which I liked.
You said it was the headbands. They also wore these sweatbands around the wrist, which is also a very 80s thing.
They did, but maybe they graduated out of that. That was the.
They weren't a cool looking band. That's true.
Well. Maybe to some, but at the time they were, though, because that was a fashion thing. They were just doing.
Yeah, I mean, so was the Clash. The Clash wore
of course,
stuff
they
like
sure
that.
Did.
Yeah, the Clash look way cooler.
I know. Well, I was wondering why does a band like this get branded as just not being cool? Because I mean, I remember when this record came out, I really liked this record. It didn't sound like anyone else.
Well, that's how it got promoted at the time. That's how I ended up buying it at the time, because the reviews were like, well, he does this. They've got this guitar sound that nobody else has, and it's really new and it's really different.
They sound like bagpipes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, the phase shifter.
And they do a lot. They do a lot of. It's a lot of single line playing. So there's not a lot of. They're not beating the chords like the Ramones.
Right. Yeah.
And so somebody might be playing. Both of them might be playing single lines while the singing's going on. And actually, it's not a phase shifter. Their secret weapon was this MXR harmonizer.
Right. That's what it was, yeah.
And they're expensive.
Oh, really?
And and there's actually some footage of them playing on an award show here, I believe.
Oh, the Grammys. The Grammys.
Yeah, but if you notice, the songs are played differently, and I have a theory.
They couldn't get the effect, and the
backline. They had to use, or they showed up, and their effects, their harmonizers were 220, or they used the, and they couldn't get a hold of them.
That's interesting.
They're playing the songs in a very different way, and I'm like, man, that's weird. You go up and play your hit, and you wouldn't play those high single lines,
right?
Unless we couldn't get the magic sauce.
And there was also,
I'm sure there was some other magic sauce there. It was the 80s.
There was also a lot of use of the EBO as well.
Yes, the EBO.
Yeah. I love EBO.
Yeah,
I think it's the coolest sound.
That's for people who don't know. It's
fascinated
like a
by
little
it.
Vibrating thing that you hold up to a string.
Yep, and
instead of strumming, you just hold it up to the string,
and it makes it sing.
Sing. And they use that a lot. Okay, here's the one thing I was going to say, and I've been holding it on Eric.
He's been holding it. Oh, because he threatened. He teased me during the week. He goes, there's these guys sound like somebody, and
not sound like someone, but there's something.
They do.
There was a band. I was thinking this record, the way it just came out of left field, and it just the sound. There was something about the sound of it and the guitars. And what record also came out earlier, came out in the '70s, but ended up being a huge record. And I'll still listen to it now, and it's not cool at all. The words aren't that great, but it sounds amazing, and it didn't sound like anyone else.
Frampton Comes Alive.
A little band, Boston, just a little band out of Boston.
Oh my God, you're right. When Boston came out,
the Boston
that
debut
guitar
record.
sound was
it's a very it's
and there's a lot of dual guitar. There's a lot of dual guitars.
It certainly doesn't sound like Big Country, but I see the parallel.
Yeah. There's two because there's a lot. They were a guitar band, and it was like you would just, as a teenager when it came out, if you were playing guitar or anything, this was your like, oh my God, these guys listen to these guitars.
Tom Schultz just came out. He came out with this effects thing.
Yes, for that specific sound.
Headphones, and it was the Schultz Rock.
Schultz
Rockman, and you plugged into it, and it made the Boston guitar sound.
Yep.
And which turned out to me not be effective for anybody but Boston.
For no one else but Boston.
Or you sound like you're trying to sound like Boston.
Right.
It's not appropriate on the music.
Right.
But what do you think? It's not bad, right?
It's true. You're right. There was, because that was their thing. Was that he had this vision for this guitar sound. However, now that we're gonna go deep. My theory on the Boston sound is that he was actually trying to make a happy version of, you know how Jonathan Richman in The Modern Lovers, he was trying to make a happy version of the Velvet Underground, or like an upbeat version.
Okay.
Boston, Tom Schultz is trying to make a happy version of Black Sabbath.
Black Sabbath. Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Is that why it's lame?
Now why is the Boston debut lame, but this not lame though? What's the difference?
Because I hate 70s rock.
Right. Okay.
And it's
aesthetically, it just
because it was forced on you too, because you're like, every time you turn the radio, you're like, oh my God.
You know, whether you want to or not, you know every song on that record because you've heard all those songs.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's
but you're right, it was a distinctive, different sounding record, and I think that's one of the things that drew me to Big Country is there were some guitar bands in the 80s, like the 80s you think of synths.
Yes,
synth bands everywhere.
Right.
And there were bands like U2 and Big Country that had these guitar sounds that were leading it. Or I would even say like the Cocteau Twins, who weren't on the radio, but like Robin Guthrie, he makes these sounds with guitar. And for me, that's infinitely more fascinating than somebody trying to do it on a synth.
Right.
Yeah.
And like John McGeoch. Is that
sure, man. Yeah,
he's a totally unique guitar player. When I heard Spellbound, I'm like, what is going on here?
What's he doing here?
Yeah, this is something different because it's not.
And by the way, it's hard to play. The thing about McGeoch guitar parts are like, you just go, and there's some of that on this record too, where I hear that they've heard towards the end of the record. There's a tune at the end. Maybe Angle Park, where I hear some guitar that's like, somebody's doing John McGeoch right there. There's a thing.
Well, Angle Park's not actually on the album. That's a B-side.
That's right. It is.
Yeah, Poor Man is the last song.
Okay. So I got too many songs on here.
See, I'm a real fan because I know this stuff.
That Angle Park is a really good song, though.
It is a good song,
All right, so
we should begin, right?
We should begin on the songs. Just one other thing I wanted to say about Stuart Adamson, that he did have a tragic end.
He did, very.
Struggled with alcoholism a lot of his life. And in 2001, his body was found in Honolulu, Hawaii.
In a hotel room.
He drank a bottle of wine and he hung himself in the closet.
Yeah, it's very sad. And some of this, we'll get into the discussion of the first song, because Big Country, to a lot of people, is a one-hit wonder band.
Right.
And I wonder if he just could never get beyond the one-hit wonder thing.
I think so, yeah.
Because the first record did well. Steel Town, even though it's a better record, did not do as well.
Is it real? I'm going to have to listen to that.
It's a really good record.
Buffalo Skinners, because I heard they were trying to make that their like comeback record.
It's more of a rock record.
It's very traditional rock, and it sort of lost their...
It lost the charm.
Yeah.
Now, The Seer got some good songs on it, but the production's kind of bad and poppy, and then the records kind of did this, as well as the popularity. So I don't know if Stuart Adamson ever got over the one-hit wonder thing.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely
right.
And
I think this is also the first record you've really discussed where there's a one-hit wonder quality to it.
Even though they were successful after and everything, but never that initial success they got. This is the only song
anybody knows by them.
Because it's the same as the name of the problem is... when you have a song with the name of the band on the first song on the album...
Well, but I thought about that. So how many bands have songs... It's mostly a metal thing, isn't it?
Oh, really?
Think about it.
Well, the Clash on the U.S. release of the first Clash record, there was Clash City Rockers.
Yes, that's right. And Radio Clash.
Iron Maiden.
Judas Priest have a song called Judas Priest. Motorhead has a song called Motorhead.
Right.
Black Sabbath has a song called
Black
Sabbath.
See, so I thought it was more of a metal thing, but it is odd that. But you have your name in the song. That is odd.
Right. All right. So first song, In a Big. It's actually not called Big Country. It's called In a Big Country.
Ask 300 people who know this song.
It's called Big Country, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's called Big Country. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's on Big Country, yeah.
Well, now, did you notice that this is something interesting, the version on the record is this longer version where it has this drum intro.
Right.
Yes.
That's more like a 12-inch single mix they did, and I'm not sure why it's on the album, because the video on MTV is the shorter version.
That starts with that
and then it goes in, and it's shorter overall. This one feels like those 12-inch singles they made in the 80s when you get the extended versions.
Oh, yeah.
I kind of wish it wasn't on the album.
Really? Because I enjoy it because this is the first I heard was this, I think. I heard this, and the drums, the whole intro thing sounds kind of amazing and like not what you would expect of a band like this, because it almost sounds, you're right, it does sound very 12-inch singly, like almost like bands like New Order were putting out.
It's got electronic percussion and stuff on there, hand claps, which don't appear nowhere else on the record.
Right, you're right.
So I think it's odd. The song is.
That sounds like a record company decision, right?
It might have been, but it's not the version I heard, because like I was exposed to them on MTV. I saw the terrible video with them on four-wheelers doing the full adventure.
Oh my God! I forgot about that.
It's a very bad video. And
whoever did that, you should be punished. You should be sentenced to prison.
But a lot of those videos are terrible in the early days. There's a particular.
That one is especially.
It's really bad. No,
it's a Scottish band. What should we have them doing?
Four-wheelers, they're like rappelling off the side of a mountain.
Dune buggies, right?
Not horses?
And then they're scuba diving, and then they have this girl that punches Stuart Adams in the face, knocks him over, and somehow knocks the entire band unconscious by running past them. It's an abysmal, awful video. Yeah. But I heard the song, and I was like, this is interesting.
Right.
So it grabbed me.
Yeah.
There's a couple things about it that it sets up the Big Country aesthetic. You've got the bagpipe sound.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
You've got the ha, shock, where they yell stuff out. Where does this come from? Where's this ha?
I'm imagining that's like a Scottish thing.
I guess it is.
Yeah,
when you're wandering a country.
Yeah, right. Or maybe right. Or they have poor electrical wiring. Like you touch something and you get.
But it's great. I mean, it definitely makes as a young when you first heard this. How old were you? You were probably in a junior high school.
Probably 14, 15.
Okay, 14. So I mean, as a young man hearing that's exciting, you know.
Yeah.
Hearing this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Scottish guy go, yeah, and then play this awesome lead. I mean, come on, what do you want? What more do you want?
Well, and because it didn't sound like anything else I'd heard.
Exactly.
And that's an interesting thing to me about Big Country is they don't come from the blues tradition. They don't come from the rock tradition.
True. Yeah, that's true.
It seems to be kind of a unique thing.
Scottish folk music.
But everything comes from somewhere, and I know Barrett's a great archivist of figuring out and I love the fact that you do that.
Self-deluded.
Well, but it's interesting to me to see where things come from, and this, I can't find a rock precedent for it. And that's
not really. No, it's more comes from bagpipes. That's really. I mean, he's imitating bagpipes with a guitar,
right?
And so. And it's got a...
What you had in AC/DC, you had some actual bagpipes in some AC/DC songs, but not the same thing. They weren't made
because... Didn't Slade do that too?
Probably, yes.
Slade did
not that Big Country probably had a Slade record, but...
I don't know.
You never know.
You know what Joey Ramone's favorite band was?
Slade.
Yep.
Okay.
He loved Slade.
Yep.
And somebody hung out with him. Somebody was talking about hanging out with him at his apartment. All he did was play Slade records.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I did see in the lyrics of this tune a little bit of maybe of the despondency of the dark gray Scottish,
It's one of the more optimistic songs on the record.
Yeah, but I'm not expecting "Go Flowers in the Desert." Where's the? I thought that pain and truth are things that really mattered, but you can't stay here with every single hope you had shattered. Well, that's optimistic.
Well, for a Big Country song, at least it's not like a miner's strike or something.
Right. There's not some. You're not marching through a field of fire with the dead bodies of your children.
Yes, exactly.
Right. Because we'll get to that.
Yes.
Pull your head up off the floor, come up screaming, cry out for everything you ever might have wanted.
There you go. So it's sort of like rising up through.
It is.
Stay alive.
And the majestic sweep of the, he sweeps his arm out like, what's his name? John Lovett. Acting.
Very heartfelt lyrics right out of the gate. But great opening song on a record sort of announces, well, this is what this record is.
What this record has absolutely zero. There is zero ironic content.
That's absolutely true. It's the opposite of your last week.
It is.
The last week
it's funny. The Smiths or the Pavement.
Yeah.
Which is both of those are snarky, ironic.
Yeah.
Well, I was
and
wondering,
Magazine is the same shit.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing, the secret sauce. Why I didn't, because I was wondering, I really liked this record when it came out, and I still love it. I'll listen to it. But I wondered why I didn't follow them afterwards. Like I knew they had songs after, but I didn't buy any more records, and I think it's because of that. It's because the lack of iron and everything. I got everything I needed from this record. It's ear candy to me, just like Boston. I'll still listen to the Boston record. I don't give a fuck. I'll tell everyone I listen to it.
It sounds good.
It's ear candy to me. Yes, but
check out Restless Natives.
It just didn't connect with me.
Restless Natives, you can find it streaming easily. It's on the.
Is that a song on your favorite big country record?
No, it's that's the soundtrack they did. To
the movie. Okay, the one. Okay, I will definitely check
on the album The Seer. It's a B-side. It's like 35 minutes because it's one big long soundtrack thing, but it's mostly instrumental.
And it's got
some fantastic EBow playing too. Stuart Adamson is a really good EBow player. I mean, he's
the trick is you gotta keep that thing in your pocket, and you gotta get it out at just the right time. Kind of like when you're
you don't want to use it all the time,
right? Because what are you gonna do? Right. But then they did come up with an invention to sort of get around the
infinite guitar thing.
There was a Fernandez sustainer, and it had a thing in the tailpiece where you could just turn it on. It would vibrate the string and do this pretty much the same thing.
That doesn't sound. I don't know. That doesn't sound like a good idea.
Well, that's what the Edge used instead of an EBow on a lot of stuff.
Oh, really?
It was called the infinite guitar. It would just the strings would constantly vibrate.
What they have is a rotating brush that excites the string down by the tailpiece, so that which the EBow's just doing the same thing. The magnet is all it's doing is making the string vibrate.
Right, continually vibrate. All right, so let's go to song number 2.
Inwards. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to stay out with news like this. All the engines too loud, all the pavements.
Yeah, but what news is he talking about?
I have not.
Exactly. What news is he talking about?
Yeah,
I pull everything inwards, but everything's changed. Yeah, I don't know what he's talking about this, but I will say
help us.
This is a really great sound. Another great sounding song. They got the dual guitars going.
Yes.
Yep.
Arpeggiated guitars.
That's right. This one has a really sort of great,
very catchy. This song was like stuck in my head after. Yeah. Very memorable.
How the Scouts in the Stairwell Will Meet.
Yeah. What is that with that? The Scouts in the Stairwell Meet again?
So maybe he's just, he is perhaps making the error of under-describing things he sees in his head, and he assumes maybe more about the capabilities of his listener than that there are there that we can figure out. Oh well. But like I said, or maybe there's Scottish people that go, oh yeah, I remember that. I know what he's talking about. So,
sure.
But they don't. You're right.
And that's how I've always felt about this record. I don't know what he's talking about. And I mean, also for me, a lot of music, vocals are things people put in there just so the songs aren't instrumental.
True.
And there's some bands like that where the lyrics are not that important. They're just something there to do a melody. In fact, there's an interesting quote about Mark Brzezinski in here where he's talking about the lyrics, and he says, as a drummer, I never really paid attention to the lyrics. I paid attention to the bass lines. I paid attention to the different dynamic, to the way the strumming was happening, and everything to do with the rhythms. And the voice was a rhythm to me. Only in hindsight did I start looking at the lyrics and go, hang on, there's some writing there. But I think a lot of people, especially maybe drummers, might focus more on the rhythmic aspect of the singing, the melody of it, rather than what he's saying.
Well, the lyrics, we should qualify and say the lyrics are in no way stupid, or they no way dumb.
No, they're not. They're not. Just like you said, they are lacking.
They're impenetrable.
Context.
In
context. Right. You say, oh, baby, oh, darling, oh, father, oh, someone. Give me a person, give me something to hang this on, but he really leaves that out.
And maybe it's by design too. It could be by design. He could want to not write specifically, except when you get to the third song on here, Chance. This is the one song I feel like that's
there's one person. Exactly. There's a subject.
It's actually a story. It's a nice change.
Whereas otherwise it's sort of subject-free material.
Right. But this is actually like a story. about a woman who's rescued from her father, her abusive father, only to, of course, be abandoned by her rescuer with her 2 sons.
Right. And there's a clever wordplay in there.
Yeah, great. That's a great line. This is my favorite. Actually, this is something in the song. It's when he says... he came like a hero from the factory floor with the sun and moon as gifts.
Yep.
But the only son you ever saw were the 2
he left you with. That's right. You were stuck inside with the kids. And in Scotland,
as a drummer, Woody, you could appreciate that even as a drummer.
Yes. Actually, there's actually one line in this whole album I think is a good lyric. We'll cover later. But generally, I really don't like the lyrics on. I don't like.
But overall, are you a lyric guy or not so much?
The lyrics, in
general, like the music you like, you listen to, do you pay attention to the lyrics more?
I do somewhat. This is the people will probably find this strange. One of my favorite lyricists is Susie from Susie and the Banshees.
Yeah.
Because I actually think she's one of the few people you could actually look at her lyrics and read them like poetry.
Yeah.
And they'll hold up. Or Leonard Cohen. His stuff, you can read it like poetry. You don't read the music.
Okay.
Right.
But I think typically lyrics are something that are there just to keep it from being instrumental. Like Joey Ramone wrote great lyrics. Be on the brat with a baseball bat. Yeah. That's all I need.
Right. My favorite
one of my big lyrics.
Probably my favorite Ramone song is "I Don't Care," I think
it's the only lyric.
But that's the thing about the Ramones was that they were still clever, even though their songs were seemingly dumb.
They were very smart guys.
There was a lot of irony there, and there's a lot of cleverness.
The Stooges, the same thing. Iggy was like Iggy's a really smart guy,
right?
But he knew that he had this aesthetic of simple and almost inept but brilliant lyrics.
ironically inept, sort of, you know?
Yeah, but you wouldn't necessarily know that about the Stooges if you just listened to their first record and you go, oh, you know, read those lyrics. So, anyway.
Well, back to Chance.
There's none of that irony on this record.
So Chance is basically a ballad, wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
So it's a ballad. What do you think of the guitar part, Barry? That ding, 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 ding. It's almost Asian sounding.
Yes, I always thought that.
It is, and which is, I don't know if there's a secret message there in that Asian guitar part.
Leave it to Barry to find the secret message.
Secret messages in Asian?
Did he intend it to sound Asian?
Oh, did he intend? I don't know, because it really does.
It does. So the first thing you think is, oh, that's like Chinese
and it's
sounding.
good, but it's really cool and it's good. It's
okay, explain to me.
Left field, kind of comes out of left field.
Why do the skirts hang so heavy around her head? Like skirts, is your skirt over your head? Is there some Scottish thing?
I don't know.
Skirt on your head?
I don't know.
So
this is why you're here, Barry.
Yeah. So
well, I also have a note here. Just it's a non-traditional use of guitar.
Yes.
The whole guitar thing is just not rock and roll at all.
Right.
Yeah. And it's very cool to me.
Yes.
I do like the refrain, the oh Lord.
Yeah.
That works.
Where did the feeling go? Yeah.
Where did the feeling go? I think that works pretty well.
It does.
But I find things that are ballads that almost aren't ballads interesting. Because
I would say this qualifies for that.
It qualifies as a ballad, but it doesn't have the cornball quality.
No,
right, exactly. It doesn't have, which a lot of time in the 80s, that was the power ballads.
Were God, the power ballad is the worst.
No, this is not that at all.
No.
Definitely it's not. It definitely has more meat to it.
And actually, you have Black Sabbath to blame for the power ballad. Remember the song Changes?
Yeah.
God, what was the one that Bill Ward sang?
Oh, no.
That song is so bad.
Oh, wow.
Do you remember that one?
No, that one's, Bill, if you'd like to contact us and defend yourself.
That one he sang is so bad. It's like pre-Beth bad.
trgmh33@gmail.com.
That's right.
Bill Ward, let us know.
We love you, Bill.
What drugs you were on when you
We love you, Bill, but you shouldn't sing.
Yeah, I think he might know that. Okay, so actually we're about the halfway point, so we're going to take a quick break, and then we will come back and discuss the rest of The Crossing by Big Country. All right, we are back. That record got me high. Episode 10, The Crossing by Big Country.
With our special guest,
Woody Compton, who now lives in Gainesville, Florida, but is...
old Tallahassee musician scene guy.
That's right. Yep. Tallahassee had a great punk rock alternative music scene in the 1980s and early 1990s. I was part of that. And I can vouch for the fact that except for the fact that it was in Tallahassee, it would have been much more widely known.
I would agree. There was a lot of very high quality stuff coming out.
There's a couple of records.
I didn't even know there were people up in Tallahassee then.
And there's a couple of records that came out of that era that stand the test of time. I'd say Out of Mind by the band Gruel.
Absolutely.
Which is a fantastic blend of alternative rock and metal with a with the vocalist and guitarist who's really got a unique sound, Tommy Hamilton.
Nice.
Who maybe we'll get on here one time. And then, of course, a Singing Spoons album, Resin Cabin.
I've heard that because of you, because you gave that to me, and that's great stuff.
And then they have a great unreleased record that I actually... what's that one called? What's the one called that didn't come out?
You gave it to me. I have it. Yeah.
Mike Coleman, sorry, I forgot the name of your unreleased album, but it is fantastic. I'll think of it before the end.
I'm going to release it on Bandcamp by myself.
Insect Fear. You guys put out an album, correct?
Yeah, Must Be Destroyed.
Must Be Destroyed. Was that on Manufacture?
Yes, it was.
Manufacture Records.
Shout out to Wayne.
Shout out to Wayne Gleesman, who was the only person coherent and competent enough.
Responsible
enough in Tallahassee to put out records.
Just a wonderful guy, too.
And a great guy. Yes.
All right, but we're not here to talk about
we're not.
Obscure Tallahassee bands.
Hagiography of Tallahassee punk rock scene.
We're here talking about
context is important.
Which, by the way, The Crossing, it's called The Crossing. There's a song called The Crossing.
Right.
It's not on the album.
I saw that. It's not on the album, but I did.
It's a B-side.
Okay, where else? There's another record where that happens, where the album is named something, and then there's a song that's on another record. I'll think of it. All right, 1,000 Stars.
David Comes to Life.
Yeah.
1,000 Stars, big drum sound. This is the type of stuff that got me fired up when I was a young drummer.
Yes. Right.
Yeah, baby. That's that Steve Lillywhite drum production.
Yeah.
He didn't mention that. We should have mentioned that.
Yeah, Steve Lillywhite, who did the first 3 U2 albums. War, which is a drum heavier record as has ever been made.
Right.
He did records by Peter Gabriel with huge big drum sounds.
Right. Peter Gabriel 3, which everybody would recognize.
Absolutely. He did records for Susie and the Banshees. He did records XTC, the Black Sea, which is
Wire.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
The Black Sea has great drum sounds too. Big drum
Black
sounds.
Sea, yes, such a great drum sound.
Too, I believe. Lillywhite did.
Which one?
Yeah.
English Settlement too, I believe Lillywhite did.
I'm not sure he did some of it. I think he did.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But he's known for big drum sounds.
Yeah. Right.
Kind of analog sounding, whereas a lot of things in the 80s are very synthetic sounding.
Right, exactly.
I think he's a little
his drums sound like somebody hitting tom-toms in a big
cavernous space.
Stone room.
Yeah.
I remember reading after XTC did Black Sea that other bands came to him and wanted to ask them, how did you get that sound? And
because the drum sounds in those records are fantastic. They're some of my favorites.
And the drum sounds in this record are great too.
Yeah.
They're really good. Sometimes they're a little like processed, almost like maybe a little
gated?
over processed, but I think it fits in very well.
Right, because when you hear this record, you will immediately go, "Oh, that's an early '80s record." There's and that is one thing that's problematic, probably about it. Is because
for you.
For me,
I like a lot of those early '80s records.
I like them too. I like them too, but some of it you go, okay, this is exactly 1984, and that's exactly what it sounds like.
So for this song, can we agree the main thing about it is the music? It's really good musical song, got great guitars. Not much going on with the lyrics.
Yeah, there's not much.
Well, the one thing that's memorable about it was it's a card game that's going on.
Oh.
Leave it to Barry.
Let's go, Barry.
Oh, come on, guys.
Let it go, man.
Now we play our final hand. What do you play hand?
I thought it was more metaphorical.
That this time like never before, only the Black Queen scores a card so high. These guys, they didn't even read the lyrics.
Where'd you find this guy? He's great.
He is.
Yeah. So, but other than that, you're right. It's
but that
the luck of 1,000 stars.
There you go.
Yeah.
The luck. It's a card game, and he's losing to the Black Queen, or
Yes. Losing its charm, he says.
I feel secure in your arms while all the city's on fire. Cities being on. There's a lot of things on fire.
Yeah, a lot of. Did Scotland have that much fire and
cold,
war?
So you want to burn shit.
Yeah, well,
basically,
that's more like stories of war and
but still, if you're cold, you might go to great lengths to stay warm. Start a war, burn some shit.
But to me, this is almost like a filler song on this record.
Like if you didn't want to get indicted, you might start a nuclear war.
Are we going down that?
We'll just leave that. I'm just going to leave that turd there on the table.
I can see you saying that, but honestly, I don't feel like there's any true filler song, because I really like every song on this record. I really do. There's something to every song on here where there's some cool parts in it. Either just a really good licks, some.
Well, it's their debut album, so you want it to be. They want it to definitely be.
I think it's mostly killer, no filler.
There's no bass solo song.
All right, now we go into song number 5, which is The Storm.
I think this is a great song.
And it's very dramatic. This is one of the more dramatic songs on the record.
Yeah, and if you look, third stanza, the houses were burning in flames, golden red, so the flames appear pretty quickly again. Leap to the fore.
I read this was about the 1745 Jacobite rebellion.
Oh,
really? Wow.
That's what I read.
Not enough songs have been written about it.
I know. Have you noticed that? I was going to make a K-Tel collection of 1745 Jacobite rebellion songs.
What were the Jacobites?
I have no idea. I'm reciting something I read on the internet.
Apologies to anyone listening in Australia. You might have had an actual education. So we got shit for education.
The song starts with that mournful Ebo.
Wonderful
sound at the
Ebo
beginning,
stuff.
And then it's got that Gaelic guitar intro strumming thing.
With really hellaciously awesome brush playing by Mark Rosowski.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Just great brush playing.
It is. It's great. Celtic, very Celtic sounding. Just very cool. And it's sung. So I guess it's the point of view of a Scotsman. So what did you say again? I forgot already.
The 1745 Jacobite rebellion.
Yes.
They didn't have to do. My James. They didn't have to do this.
Which I don't know what they're referring to.
Right. I tried looking it up and tried to find maybe a Bible. This is something from the Bible, but no, I don't. I couldn't find out who is James.
Both Hunters and
one of the great mysteries that maybe went down with Stuart.
Adamson. Both Hunters and Hunted washed down in the rain. I mean, it has a picturesque quality of, people in pre-industrial times and the time of war when there's just like mud and fire and spears and death,
right, and
bad smells.
Yes.
It's interesting at the end of this song. The drums go into 3/4, where the rest of the music is 4/4. It goes shoom shada, shoom shada, and the drums get soloed out at the end, where the rest of the music fades out.
Oh, right. Okay.
It's kind of an interesting approach. One thing that's also interesting to me about this whole record: a lot of the songs don't fade out; they actually end.
Yeah, right.
And that to me shows a band playing together and practicing and writing songs together.
Right.
I think a lot of times when people write in the studio, the fade out is because they don't know where to end the song almost.
Right. I'm gonna just
So I like it when bands.
No, and they were really good. I looked YouTube. I looked up some live shows of them playing, and they were a really good band. They really were.
They had very high musicianship.
Yeah, and they had to play these songs. I mean, it's one thing to do them in the studio. You could sell there's a lot.
They've got to do their little Scottish dance while they play it.
There was that. Yeah, I saw
that was part of their thing.
I don't know. I guess they choreographed that, or maybe it was just like you gotta move around like this. Mm-hmm. Because it was definitely a part of the live show was this sort of Scottish looking dancing. So obviously the pride of being Scottish and the representing, because the Scots always get treated like the hillbillies of. Basically,
really, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I mean, Irish really get treated like the Irish got treated like just like slaves.
Right.
But the Scottish were kind of like, well, those are the country cousins. The country cousins.
I just love.
Do you remember the movie Trainspotting? Their quotes in there about we're Scottish.
Yeah, that's right. I just love listening to some of the live stuff, just hearing them talking to the audience with that Scottish.
You can't even tell what they're saying half the time.
I know, it's awesome. I love
it. There's no subtitles.
All right, so we go into song 6 is Harvest Home. And another song about life.
It seems to be pre-industrial.
Yes.
Which seems to be pre-industrial.
How many sheaves were counted?
It's true. Who led the May Day feasting? Who saw the harvest home? See where the butter melted. See where the altars creep. He's talking about days gone by. Sort of a wistful remembrance, maybe of an imagined. A romantic past in Scotland,
and this has that biblical "just as you sow, you shall reap."
Yes. Where were the heroes honest? Where was the summer wine? Watch how the waves must shatter. Watch how the shore divides. Watch how the nets will tatter. watch Canute and his bride. Okay, I looked up this one, and King Canute was a legendary Danish king who, believe it or not,
I'm amazed, Barry.
The Jacobite thing, you looked that up, so. Nicky Sutton and the Jacobites.
It sounds like
remember
stuff
them?
you'd overhear at a Renaissance fair.
It does. Yeah.
Thankfully, this song is saved by a very catchy guitar part.
Yes. This song is great. Yeah, the ending, a guitar figure at the end, and then it's got. I love at the end. Did you notice it goes? He's got this like extra drum beat that comes in at the end every once in a while. When you listen to the outro, he'll add like an extra little drum measure every like on the fourth one maybe, and it's just really cool.
Mark Brzezinski's a very creative drummer. A lot of these songs actually have almost drum hooks in them.
Yes,
exactly. Have like little bits of the bell.
Hook, right,
and I have to mention something that this record made me buy as a China cymbal. A China cymbal is this very trashy type of sound.
Right.
It's all over this record. It's almost it should deserve its own credit next to the rest of the band. So when I was 15, I couldn't afford cymbals, so I took a cheap cymbal and I went out in my garage and beat the edges inside out with a hammer to try to make one because I wanted to get this sound that was on this Big Country record. But I think he's very good at adding drum flourishes to make the songs even more interesting.
Yeah.
So when you heard this record, were you playing drums already?
Yes.
Woody? Okay, you were. Okay.
I guess I'll plug Woody. Are you still making drums?
I am not.
Okay.
Since Hurricane Irma, a lot of things are no longer being done anymore.
Yeah.
No.
Right. He used to make drums. Comptone was the name of his company.
Really?
Yes, made and sold handmade snare drums.
Very fancy stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so we go into song 7 is Lost
Patrol. Which,
wonderful Ebo.
More Ebo.
Love the Ebo. He's so good on the Ebo,
and these are soldiers, of course. They're on patrol. It's gotta be.
Manly Scottish soldiers. Very dramatic.
I'm guessing they didn't make it back.
Yeah, they're the Lost Patrol.
The thorn between our lips is the missionary's tune. All men with open arms turn their faces half the way, observe as we approach. Almost it seems like you're looking at a medieval painting.
Yes,
yes. Where you've got that, you've got that sort of flat perspective, and there's they're telling things. They're telling a whole story with one painting that, for the people looking at it, would tell the whole story. But you just, as someone in the 21st century, look at it and you go, well, I'm not able to piece all this together. But if you had the painting was just sort of a reminder of a tale that was told over, that's how things are, oral tradition. So that's my guess about this is that
I think if the music wasn't so great and so stirring, this would be really boring. So unless you were really into this, into like Scottish history and everything, But the music is so good; it just lifts. It just lifts it up.
There's a feeling to these lyrics, and there is. It's sort of a monomaniacal feeling of this one sort of emotion that's kind of presented throughout the whole record, and it's a kind of dark determinism or dark.
It's almost like that painting you were talking about. The whole record is that painting,
right? Yes,
the whole record could be that painting.
Painting. Yeah.
Well, this song has a lot of bleak lyrics in it,
Yeah, but if you, I can find. There's a lot of bleak stuff on this record.
Are they playing cards in this one, Barry?
Did not see any cards.
But isn't there something about there's nothing here but the stench of toxic waste or something?
Yeah, let's see. There's no beauty here, friends, just death and decay.
Yeah, stuff like that.
So Close Action is also fighting, right?
That's what I thought was a reference to.
Yeah. Okay. And this song itself, it seems a little different than a lot of the songs on the record because it's kind of.
It's in 6/8. It's almost like an Irish reel.
Yeah, and it's but it's good. I like it, and it's definitely it definitely takes you out of the a lot of the other songs. It's a different sounding song.
It's not as driving because it's a 6/8 song.
Right.
But it's an interesting thing though that this is something that was happening a lot in 80s music. They would do things that are in 6/8 or 3/4. But they weren't shuffle time. They weren't like this.
Yeah. They were right. They weren't doing
They were more like But there's a lot of music in the 80s that's like this. It's in 6/8 that doesn't have a traditional rock, blues, traditional feel, and I think this is more of like I said, like an Irish reel or
yeah,
something.
Right. Yeah.
But the riff itself is really cool. The main guitar riff is cool, and again,
there's a subject in this one too, which is you don't know who it is, but he's talking about someone that he's going. I will carry you home
with the
God's in my eyes. I'll carry you home with the west while the westerlies sigh, winds that blow across the ocean. I will carry you home. So he's bringing someone home across the ocean from far away, or across the North Sea, or something along those lines.
And shocker, it has a really cool melodic guitar break in it.
Right.
Too, which
the bridge is very cool.
It is.
It's like,
it is.
Yeah, I remember that bridge. And it's interesting. There aren't really guitar solos; they're bridges.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not
right.
bankery.
Right.
It's a written part.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Everything on here, even the guitar, this quote unquote solo stuff, is definitely has a place. It's composed.
Yeah.
It's very orchestral almost, where the songs have different parts to them, and
Well, when you see them live, you don't see them like when it comes to this bridge. The guys are just going.
Yes,
it's like it's the exact same part every time. It's a written part.
Yeah.
Not like Slash. It's gonna.
Yes.
Right. Just that's the first person that sprung to mind of that making those sounds you did with your mouth.
The weeded. Yeah.
All right, and now we go into my personal favorite song on the record, "Fields of Fire." Just because I feel like "Fields of Fire" encompasses everything you love about Big Country.
This is funny. My notes here say this is what people think of when they think of Big Country.
Yes, because it's got
the whole
anthemic sound,
the driving drums,
it's got the shouted
yes, it's got the
bagpipe guitar, and it's got the melodic bass part, the soloing bass parts, which we haven't mentioned. Tony Butler.
He's badass.
He's a big part of this band because so many times both guitars are doing these melodic things.
So he's got to hold down that rhythm.
Yes, but he's not holding it down like a regular bass player would just be thumping. He's going, he's doing these really intricate bass lines, and they're and his. Singing too, his backup singing.
Right.
Yeah, he's a good backup singer.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And he's got that chorus pedal going too.
He's got the chorus and
it was the 80s.
Effective
chorus
bass, but it's cool.
Big time.
And the marching. This has the marching drum at the outro.
That's
so
what
this is
about
everything.
This song is a marching song.
Oh,
That's why you like it so much, because it's moving and it's encouraging you to.
I love this. I'll listen to this. This is something. If I was like going into battle or something, I would put this.
Absolutely, that's what it sounds
like. To get me psyched up. If I was going to yell at the person,
well, that's what bagpipes were
at
for.
the bank for
rouse the troops and to terrify the enemy.
Yeah, they terrify me to this day. They do.
At the Starbucks barista for messing up my order, I would listen to this first.
Oh, okay.
I wouldn't do that, by the way. I don't do that.
Okay. Now you don't.
No. I never yell at a Starbucks barista.
Yeah, not a good idea.
No.
So the next one, Poraman, I looked this up. Apparently a Poraman is a shaman, and it comes from an H.G. Wells story.
Right.
Did you read about this?
Yeah, I looked up that.
Like the guy was like cursed by someone, and so I don't know how that gives us anything. And again, I hate to beat up on this because I love this song. I think this is a fantastic song.
It is, yeah.
I think it's my favorite song on the record.
Yeah, it is one of my favorites.
It's
really
long,
like
and in general, I really don't like long songs. I think if a song's going to be over 2.5 minutes, you better earn it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
That's why the Ramones are great. That's why Hank Williams Sr. is great.
But there's exceptions to the rule.
And this is an exception. This one builds well.
Because this one needs all the space it has. It needs it to build up dramatic, because it's got a really dramatic intro that builds. It starts
into
out
almost a completely different song at the end. The tempo's
right. It starts out with these twinkling guitars and the bass line, and then it just builds and builds and builds at the beginning. That's like there's like 3 sections to this song.
Yeah.
And it's really good. So it builds and builds, and then finally it gets into the song where we sing Night hangs on the city like a blanket on a cage, a sacrifice prepared.
And that I think is actually his best lyric on the record.
His lyrics are really good in this. Poetry. They're good. It's good poetry.
Night hangs on the city like a blanket on a cage. I'm like, wow, that's good. I had to Google it to see if he ripped it from somebody because it's good enough.
A sacrifice prepared.
Well, actually, what it reminds me of a Wicker Man. Right? The guy up in the human sacrifice being prepared. And everybody had seen that movie. And that movie sort of has
in
you
England,
remember that you don't remember anything about it. You remember like the naked women, and you remember the end.
Yeah.
Like, oh.
But we have this great lyrical stuff that's pretty good. I'm going to grab onto, and then at the end it's give us iron, give us rope. What in the world? How did we get there?
That's going to be war, dude. This is some sort of. This is again. They're going. You're going to give us iron, give us rope. This guy is maybe he's a shaman mind control. Maybe he's using mind control. Maybe at the end they're gonna.
Well, he's saying when our fate is in the hands of a demon or a god.
Yeah.
So is he a demon or a god?
Well, there's almost even, you could even wonder, is there Tolkien's Mordor sort of, because that stuff was, everybody, you have to look for.
We're at the Ren Fair again. We're back at the Renaissance.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's like a Led Zeppelin album.
It was
it's all
true,
Tolkien.
because the Tolkien thing, it affected people, and so that would infect their way that they would perceive of things historical, even though Tolkien's technically not writing history. Mm-hmm. It's got this the magical history.
All that stuff's not true.
Well, according to my wife's stepbrother, the secret about the secret about the Tolkien stuff is it all takes place in the future, not in the past.
Oh, I see. Like Star Wars was a long time ago in a galaxy.
Yeah, but it's better than Star Wars. I'm just going to throw that out there, too.
Okay.
Bold statement from Barry Stuck.
Yeah, I'm not retracting that. You can say whatever you want, but...
And so you must love the ending of this. It's just got the drums, when the drums just got that marching drum things, when he's give us iron, give us rope, and it ends...
I love Mark Brzezinski. I think he's awesome.
Yeah, and it ends, so the record ends with just him, right?
Yep,
with just the drums doing that great martial beat.
I think Steve Lillywhite liked drummers, because if you listen to a lot of his records, like he did a Morrissey record that has some huge, big drum sounds on it too. I think he just gravitated towards drummers and kind of let them do their thing.
Right.
Whereas some people, it's kind of pushed aside. Like you notice, even the cymbals on this record are really loud. They're not buried in the mix.
Right.
They're very upfront.
Well, Steve Lillywhite popularized a sound. Like the Lillywhite production sound was as some of these bands wouldn't be famous without Steve Lillywhite. Because
he was almost like a member of the like an extra member of the band.
Right, exactly. Like, Talking Heads on Remain in Light, more songs about building and food and Fear of Music. Then he was with like U2 on those records, XTC for those records, where he makes something that sounds, he affects it to the point where he is an adjunct member of the band.
Right. Yeah, there's certainly producers like that. And, he came in on U2 records later, like the ones that Eno and Lanois did. The songs that were the radio hits, they would often have him come in and like Pride in the Name of Love off The Unforgettable Fire doesn't sound like the rest of the record. It's a little more straight ahead and rock and roll.
Yeah.
And he's the one that did that one.
And it's got that great drum sound.
It's got a great drum sound.
It sounds great, but you remember, Steve's going to come in and we're going to work on. We're going to get
this is nice and all, but
this sounds really great. Brian, thank you so much for
thank you for all your treatments and ambience and.
But we need to get a hit.
Yeah, we got.
Yeah, we got to move some numbers here.
Right.
One thing I wanted to bring up about Big Country that I think, besides the one-hit wonder thing that comes up, is they're lumped in with U2 and The Alarm.
Yes, exactly. I forgot about The Alarm. I was going to mention The Alarm, too.
It's interesting because Big Country opened for U2 on some shows, and they get lumped in as being like, oh, they're the same type of thing. Or like, Big Country's a U2 sounding band. I don't think they sound alike at all.
No, I don't think they're like... I think... But to me, it's more of the earnestness.
Yes.
And lack of
guitar
irony.
bass.
Because all three... Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And all three... I'll tell you what. I enjoy all three of those bands. I like, but The Alarm and really U2 the same. Although I did listen to other. I mean, I did like U2 more back in the day. I didn't listen to them as much after. Unforgettable Fire was probably the last U2 record that I actually bought, but I still did pay attention to them, and I always wonder. I don't know. It seems obviously they're one of the biggest bands in the world. But there are certain people, mostly people me and Barry hang out with, who are just sort of the elitist musicians that it's just not.
It's not cool to like.
It's not cool to like U2, but I'm definitely not of that thing. I think U2. I mean, how many other bands can you think of that started when they were all in high school, and it's still the same 4 guys?
That's true.
Same 4 guys. They became the biggest band in the world, and they still remain somewhat relevant. And
well, I think there's and being a drummer, this is something I'm going to throw out there that I think is actually important for these bands. The bands I think that often stay together and succeed, they split up everything equally.
Yeah, well, we actually talked about that.
You have
talked about that.
The songwriting, because once one member starts making a lot more money because he got the songwriting.
Sting.
Bingo.
Yeah, right.
And the egos get in the way.
Yeah, well, did you read
the
about
dynamic changes?
The Smiths they said they were 40% Morrissey, 40% Marr, and the other 2 guys split up the other one. There's like a big lawsuit about it. But my point would be this: how would you feel if you were Larry Mullen? You played on War. The album starts with probably the most distinctive drum part in the history of rock music.
Right.
And you didn't get songwriting credit for that.
Exactly.
That causes friction and bitterness, and the bands break up.
And because somebody gets to buy a mansion and somebody gets to live in like Pembroke Pines.
Yeah, exactly. And I think
good on that.
But if you look at the songwriting credits on this is all
R.E.M. was another one of those bands.
Absolutely. And that's why I think they stuck together and there wasn't this hostility.
What is the songwriting on this? Because I didn't
It's all split up amongst
It is split up. Okay, I thought so. Which it should be, because like you said,
look at their parts.
The drummer is just as integral
hugely
to these
important to these songs.
And,
hugely important. And the bass parts, we were talking about how integral they were.
Definitely.
And if those guys didn't get songwriting credit, I think that's the type of thing that causes these it breaks bands apart.
Right.
And when I was listening after I read that,
Stuart Adamson did kill himself anyway, but
he was man.
Maybe he wouldn't have made it that long.
And I worry about that because I think it was so sad when I heard about it.
It really was sad.
Because if you look at it, the guy's a very talented guitar player. He can sing well. Yeah. He's a handsome, good-looking guy.
Right.
He's not like like all the lyrics in magazines.
I think you told me right.
Yeah.
He had demons, though.
But you told me that he had designs on moving to Nashville and being.
He did move to Nashville, and he was in like this alternative country band. And if like you listen to the Buffalo Skinners, it's more of a straight ahead rock record.
It is, yeah.
It's like he almost tried to get away from this sound that they made and what made them interesting.
Yeah.
And it's like that. It was.
You hit the nail on the head, I think, when you said that he probably never got past the fact that they had this that they were still considered a one-hit wonder, even though they're really not. They're not a one-hit wonder. But to the average layman, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, they had that one big country."
There's a lot of one-hit wonders that we saw on MTV in the '80s that were bands that had multiple hits in Europe and England.
Right.
But there were one-hit wonders over here.
Right. We would not know that. They had a bunch of hits over there.
And I think in Big Country falls under that, and that's why it bothers me when certain bands I thought of as one-hit wonders. I almost get my back up a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This album was amazing. You should have heard Steel Town. This, it's way better than this other record.
Steel Town's the one we should all listen to. We should all check out Steel Town.
But the band hates it. They hate that album.
Oh, no.
You know how that happens?
You can't win there. You can't win.
Oh, my God.
But we talk about that, how the bands will talk about this is their favorite album, and they're usually wrong. Right?
That's true.
Never trust a musician. Never trust a band.
Never trust a musician. Period.
Never ask them how they thought the show went, because your experience of it is totally different than theirs. Never ask them what their favorite record is, because I remember we saw the Screaming Trees after they had that hit, the record that Don Fleming produced. There was a grunge, after Nirvana came out, and the Screaming Trees had this album that they had a hit on, a radio hit. And Susan and I actually liked the previous record, Uncle Anesthesia, a lot. And remember, we asked him, the guitar player, hey, we really like that one. He goes, oh, that's a terrible record. We hated that. You're like, thanks, pal,
for ruining my opinion.
Thanks, right? Yeah.
The other thing I was going to throw in that you always say
never meet them.
Never meet them. I wanted to discuss that really briefly. This is somewhat different when you're a drummer. I've met many of my favorite drummers.
Technical aspect.
Well, because drummers,
you're not meeting them.
You're not meeting the front
musician.
Man.
You're just meeting a drummer.
Exactly. You're just meeting basically a caveman who is able to move these cylinders around and hit them. But I think because they're not the front men, they're not the guys out front who get all the attention and have people clamoring.
They're always in the back, right?
Yeah, and also because there's a lot of shop talk involved with drummers. But I've met many of my favorite
drummer
drummers.
has the most shitty job in a band to set up all that crap and drag it around and then break it down.
Yeah, and then you have to stare at the singer's ass the whole show.
Yeah,
right.
But I can tell you I've met many of my favorite drummers because I would always go up and talk to them after the show. I had no problem with that. And also a lot of the bands I liked were bands small enough I could go see.
Right.
In a small venue. You know, so like Bill Stevenson, the Descendants, one of my favorite drummers. I could just walk up and go see him after a show.
Yeah,
stuff like that. Marky from the Bad Brains, or when he was
Monster.
But it's like I could go up and talk to him afterwards. But most of those guys are great.
Right.
I just don't talk to the singers.
Yeah, right. Well,
that's good to go by. Never talk to the singers.
Okay.
All right. Well, we did it. We did Big Country.
So you got to do. I have no idea. We haven't talked about this. What's your big reveal?
Oh, that's right. All right. The record next week. This one. We're going hardcore. We're going hardcore. We're going to a pretty vicious album by a band, one of my favorite punk bands. We're doing Plastic Surgery Disasters by the Dead Kennedys.
Beautiful.
Oh,
we had no irony in this. We're going to have a ton of irony. A lot of irony. It's a really great record, though, and I think you're going to, if you've never dug deep into it, I think you're going to have a lot to grip on.
Dead Kennedys are, they were smarter and better musicians than the vast majority of the hardcore musicians.
And to me, this is their best record. This was the pinnacle. So next week, Dead Kennedys, Plastic Surgery Disasters.
We want to thank so much Woody Compton for.
No, thank you for having me. I'm flattered.
It was a blast.
It was, and that's Barry Stock.
That's Rob Elba.
That record got me high.
Episode 10.
Yes, we'll see you guys next week.
Next week.